Okay, we are now then ready for the standard assessment over standard 2, the quadratic equations. Now, there's three parts of this. You got your graphing, which this is a good guide for how to graph. You have your solving equations, and this is a good guide for that. Okay, X. And then you got your story problems. This A-B crap, we're going to do that on scratch paper. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about this. Let's go to the graphing first. These are parabolas. Now, how do we know they're parabolas? Because there's x squared in an equation, okay? So that means it's going to be a parabola. It's not going to be a line. That's if there's no exponents between x and y. Okay, so we have standard form. That's if there's no parentheses. Vertex form, that's if there's one parentheses with the second power. And remember, these circle letters will be replaced with numbers. Then factored form, there's these three right here. Alright, so first equation, what form is it in first? Is there a parentheses? No, I don't think there is, so that's going to be in standard form. So I'm going to write standard form. And how are we going to graph that? Well, every time I graph a parabola, no matter what form it is, we're going to use XY table. Okay. So the most important point to find on a parabola, okay, and I'm going to write parabola because it's second power parabola, B-O-L-A. Okay, so A, B, and C are values. The middle vertex is found using the formula opposite of B divided by 2 times A. Okay, so I'm going to write that here. And now we need to put some numbers in place. So the opposite of my B would be positive 32 because it's negative on the equation. Then I have 2. And then A is going to be 4. Okay. Okay, so 2 times 4 is 8, and 32 divided by 8 equals 4. Okay. Now to find the out, and that's your middle x value. That's the vertex in the middle. Now you plus 1 and minus 1 to find the outer x. So 4 plus 1 is 5, 4 minus 1 is 3. Okay, so what we're going to do then, substitute on the calculator to find y. So I've got 4 parentheses 5 is the first substitution we make for x. That's to the second power, and then minus 32, parentheses 5, and then plus 1. Negative 59. Probably going to have to go by 5s or 10s, probably 10s to hit that. Now we're going to plug 4 in. So I got 4 to the second power, minus 32, and then 4 plus 1. Okay, I got negative 63. And I'm hoping this ends up back at negative 59, so I go 3. So 4 times 3 to the second power, minus 32 times 3, plus 1. Okay, negative 59. Alright, so first coordinate, we go to 5 on the x and negative 59. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and then 59 stops right there. 4, negative 63. 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and then 63. 3, negative 59. So 1, 2, 3, and down 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and then 59 is right there. And I have my parabola. Okay, the next problem. Again, it's a parabola. You don't see the second power, but because we have a product of 2 x's right here, that means we have x a second. Although you don't see it, you don't want to see it necessarily. So it's a parabola. And what form is that in? Well, it's not in standard because there's parentheses. Vertex form just contains one parentheses with the second power. Well, we have more than one parentheses and we don't even see the second power, so it's going to be factored form. Okay, remember this A, P, Q are just numbers that will appear. Okay, so the table is what we use. Okay, find the outer x values first by setting the inside parentheses equal to 0 and solve. So you're actually going to find your outer x's before you find the middle vertex. So x minus 4 can equal 0, or the expression x plus 8 could equal 0. Okay, so I add 4 to both sides, and I get 4 for my first. I minus 8, I get negative 8. Okay, and those are your outer x's. Okay, now to find the middle vertex, you add the outer values together and divide the sum by 2. So 4 plus negative 8, and that's negative 4, and that sum always has to be divided by 2 because you just added 2 numbers. So it's negative 2. Okay, and find the y, substitute on the calculator. The outer y's will equal 0 because they are x-intercepts. So let's make sure they equal 0 though. So 2 parentheses and then x minus 4, so it's going to be 4 minus 4. Okay, and then 4 plus 8, and then 0, just like we thought. You know it's going to be 0 because 4 minus 4 is 0, and then the whole product would be 0. The other factors would be irrelevant. Okay, so negative 2. So I got 2, and then negative 2 minus 4, close it, and then we're going to go negative 2 plus 8, close that up, and I get negative 72. Okay, and negative 8. Hoping it ends up at 0, so 2, and then negative 8 minus 4, and then negative 8 plus 8, and I got 0. Okay, so I have x and I have y. Okay, so 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Negative 2, negative 72, so left 2, down 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. Okay, negative 8, 0, so left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and it's a very wide parabola. That's perfectly okay. All right, last one. Last graph, I should say. Okay, y equals negative 2, parentheses, x minus 4 to the second plus 6. Okay, well, it's not the second power's there. We see that, so that means we're going to have a parabola. Now, what form is that parabola in? Okay, standard, nope. You can't have any parentheses for it to be in standard. Vertex, yeah, it is. 1 parentheses to the second power, so it's in vertex form. Okay, so how would we go about finding it? Okay, the middle vertex can be found by setting the inside parentheses equal to 0 and solving. So the inside expression is x minus 4. That could equal 0. So I add 4 to both sides. And then I add 1. It's 5. Subtract 1, you get 3. Okay, and then substitute on the calculator to find y. So I have negative 2. And then 5 minus 4 to the second power plus 6, and that's 4. Put 4 in, so we have negative 2. 4 minus 4 to the second power plus 6. So it's going to be 6. Okay, and then 3. Hopefully we end up back at 4. Negative 2, parentheses, 3 minus 4 to the second. Plus 6 is 4. So I have to graph 5, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and we have a parabola. Now, the reason it's upside down is because we have a negative lead coefficient. So when we have a negative in the lead of a quadratic or parabolic equation, we know pretty much it's going to go like that. All right, so that's graphing. So I'm going to go ahead and put that away. And now we're on to the equation solving aspect of the Standard. Okay, now the key here is to know which strategy you need to follow. If you have x squared only, you're not going to draw the boxes. You're going to isolate x squared, undo the second part of the square root, and if that square root's a decimal, you need to do this as a sample of what's going on. So if I end up having to square root 20, I know that's a decimal, so I make 2 square roots and try to divide by one of the square roots. Okay. Hold on, I'm going to get that sheet that has all the square roots. Would probably be smart because you can use that. Okay, here it is. Alright, and if you have x squared and x, you have to use the factoring process. Okay. You have to make sure you have equals 0 and count the terms 2 or 3. And there's the 2-term process, and there's the 3-term process. You need to do the t-chart unless there's a number higher than 100, then you can just go straight to the quadratic formula. But if you can't find anything, then we can go to it. Alright, so let's talk about this. All these have 2 answers, okay? So the first equation, what do we have going on with the x to the second? Well, there's an x also in the equation, so this is the factoring process, okay? Okay, how many terms we got here? 2 or 3. And then the zero's there, so we're good there. Count the terms, 2 or 3. Looks to me like there's 2, so 2 terms. Okay, so I do GCF and then see if I have a difference of perfect squares. Set up your boxes. Now, again, you can't be afraid to cross boxes off. Okay, so GCF, do you have a negative in front? I don't think you do. Do you have X on both of those? Yep. And go to your GCF calculator, and 7 and 28 have a GCF of 7. Okay, so I factor out 7x, divide by 7x, and that's going to be 1x minus 4. Now, is this a difference of perfect squares? You have the minus, and 4 is a perfect square. That's 2 times 2. 1's a perfect square. That's 1 times 1. But is just x a perfect square? No, I don't think it is. It'd have to be to the second power for it to be xx. So we are going to cross this out. Okay, get that box out of there. So we're done factoring. We need to put the parentheses around that guy because he has x, and that's f1, and that's f2. Okay, so 7 times x can equal 0, or 1x minus 4 can equal 0. So I'm going to just divide by 7 here. You don't have any adding or subtracting, so that's 0. Undo the minus 4 by plussing 4, and 1x equals 4. And I don't really need to divide, so 0 and 4 are the 2 solutions. Okay, next problem. Again, all these have 2 answers, okay, guaranteed. Okay, I obviously have x to the second power, and there's an x to go with it, so again, we're going to have to use our factoring procedure, and that's down here, okay? Equals 0, make sure I don't have it, so I need to add 12. And I don't believe 12 is going to go with 1x squared or 7x, so we add 12 behind the 7x. Okay, so I have 1x to the second power minus 7x plus 12 equals 0. Okay, now I know how many terms I have. Count the terms. There's 3, so 3 terms. So 3 terms, we switch over here, and it's GCF-T. Okay. Okay, GCF, you got a negative in front? Nope. You got X on every term? Nope. 1, 7, and 12. GCF is 1. So that's not going to work. A, B, C. Okay. A times C. So I have 1 times 12. Okay. 1 times 12 is positive 12. And so it's positive, so we're going to look for a sum. And that sum needs to equal the B coefficient of 7. Okay. So 2 factors of 12 that add to 7. 1 and 12, nope. 12 divided by 2 would be 6. No. 12 divided by 3 would be 4. Bingo. Okay. All right, now I see that my 7 up there is minus. It's very important you know how to do your signs, okay? It's minus, okay? So 4 would need to be minus, and it is a sum, so they would have to be a match, okay? -3, -4. And A is equal to 1x squared. And what's the significance of that? Well, that means I just need 2 parentheses because 1x squared can be x, and that's it. So -3, -4. There was no GCF we need to put here. So F1, F2. Okay, so x minus 3 could equal 0, or x minus 4 can equal 0. So add 3 to both sides. I get 3 for my first answer. Add 4 to both sides. I get 4 for my second. 3 and 4. Okay, let's look at this guy. -4x to the second power plus 2 equals -158. Okay, there's 2 solutions. And what do we have going on here? We have x to the second, and there's also, that's it. It's x to the second only, so I don't do this factoring bull crap. I just try to isolate the x to the second, okay? So I need to plus minus 2. So I have -4 times x to the second equals -160. And then we need, before we got to still get rid of the -4 by dividing. So x to the second power equals 40. So now the x to the second's by itself. Now we undo the second power with a square root. Okay? And those cancel each other. So x equals, and it's a positive negative. Okay, so if I square at 40, that's a decimal. But I said, if it's a decimal, you can't write it. You need to do this. This is the one problem I'm requiring this on. Okay? Make 2 square roots, and then look at the square root list, and I have it on the board. And it's 40, so 40 falls in between what 2 values here? Between here. So let's try to divide 40 by 36. Nope. 40 by 25. Nope. 40 by 16. Nope. 40 by 9, nope, and 40 divided by 4. Okay, I got that to work. So you put the 4 first and the 10 in second, and then we replace that with its equal. The square root of 4 equals 2. Okay? So I just put that 2 square root 10, and that's your answer. So you have 2 square root 10, 2 square root 10 with negative. Okay? Okay, next problem, I have 2 answers. And I see the x to the second, and I have an x to go with it, so I need to follow my factoring protocol. Okay. Since the x's aren't like terms, you're going to need to use a different strategy. Okay, is the 0 there? Yep. Count the terms. Looks like there's 3. Okay, so with 3 terms, I'm going to use the GCF and the T-chart. Okay, GCF, do you have a negative in the front? Doesn't look like it. You got X on everything. Nope. 5, 27, and 10, the GCF's 1. So we can abort mission there. ABC, so I take A times C, so I get 5 times 10. And that's 50, and that's positive. So since I got a positive, I'm looking for a sum that would equal the 27 in the middle. Okay, 50 plus 1's not it. 50 divided by 2 is 25. That's 27. Got it. Okay, so 27 is minus, so we know 25 is minus. Again, these have to add up to negative 27. So the only way that happens is if your larger factor is negative. And it's a sum, so the signs are a match. And those do add to the negative in the middle. Okay, but a little problem here. A is 5x squared. Well, 5x squared is not x times x. Hate to break that to you. If it's anything but a 1x squared, the best way to get to where we want to be is to use the 4 parentheses method. So I put the 5 first, but I'm going to break the x squared down into x and x, and then minus 2 minus 25. Okay, 5 and 2, and you're going to divide these down, but the GCF there is just 1, so we will just drop that. 5 and 25, the GCF is 5. That's 1x minus 5. Okay, there was no GCF, so I got F1 and F2. So 5x minus 2 could equal 0, or 1x minus 5 could equal 0. So I need to add 2 to both sides. So 5 times x equals 2. And you can divide 2 by 5. It's 0.4. Or you can write it as 2/5. Pick one. Pick the one you like doing better. Okay. Plus 5 plus 5. 1x equals 5. And we don't really need to divide. So 0.4 or 2/5 and then 5. All right, 2 answers here. So which method? Well, we got that parentheses to the second. So that's probably going to be this Q method here. Okay. Plus minus something. Okay. Put H there. All right, so we replace that expression with Q and make that chart. Okay. And we have a 5 as the coefficient on Q, and the Q's to the second equals 125. Okay, let's isolate the Q to the second. Well, we don't have to add or subtract. We need to undo the multiplication of 5 by dividing. So Q to the second power equals 25, and then we find the square root of both sides. Q equals positive or negative. The square root of 25 is 5. I'll just prove it to you. So I don't need to do that crap where I make the 2 square roots. Okay. So I come up here, I put 5 and negative 5, and then I bring in the x minus 3. And then we just need to add 3. We don't even have to divide. So x equals 8. And x equals negative 2. All right, last problem. 2 answers. We have x to the second, and we have x. That means we have to follow the factoring process because you're never going to be able to isolate x squared if there's an x around with it. Okay, good news is zeros here. Count the terms. There's 3 terms. So I go GCF T. Okay, GCF, got a negative in front? Nope. Got an X on everything? Nope. 5, 10, and 3, GCF's 1. So we can abort mission there. And A, pen die, okay. And then A, B, and C. That one's about dead. Okay, so A times C. So we're going to take 5 times negative 3, and that's going to be 15 negative difference of 10. Because when it's negative, we're looking for a difference of the B. 1 and 15, that's a difference of 14. 15 divided by 2 is a decimal. 15 divided by 3 is 5. Okay. Well, 5 minus 3 is not 10 either. It's actually 2. So it went from 14 to 2. So that skipped over 10. That's a fail. Okay. So we need to use the quadratic formula. So big line, plus, minus, and it's singing. Opposite of B, opposite of B, plus or minus the square root. And then parentheses to the second minus 3 parentheses in a row because it's b squared minus 4ac. Something squared minus 4 and then more things. Okay, so the b again right there, b, you can't really see it that well. It's kind of tiny. 10. A is 5 and c is negative 3. In the bottom you got 2 and 5. Plus or minus, I've got negative 10. And 2 times 5 is 10, and then the square root, okay? Well, for the sake of time, I'm going to use a calculator, but remember, if you don't like doing that, you can take 10 times itself with the minus and so forth. You'll get where you want to be. So, second square root. Remember, you need to make, if you're going to use a calculator, the parentheses has to be doubled at the beginning. First parentheses tells your calculator I want all of this in the square root, and then the second parentheses is just for the 10. Minus, a lot of you guys need to get the minus in there. You'll just enter the parentheses. That's not good. You ain't going to get it right. And you get 12.65. Okay, 0.26. First answer. Divided by 10, and that's negative 2.27. All right, now story problems. There's going to be 2 of them. Actually, 3 of them because you got this one, and then you have an AB on the back side, which you need to be using scratch paper for. Okay, and I'm actually going to get up for a second here, get my iPad, because I'm going to be nice on the test so I don't get a bunch of weird answers. I'm going to let you use a little tool for this one, which you will appreciate. Get to Google, okay. All right, let's read it. Skateboard shop sold 50 skateboards last week. They were selling them for $70 a piece. The store thinks that each time they decrease the price by $1, one more skateboard will be sold. How many times should the store change the price to maximize their revenue? What will the maximum revenue be? Maximum, I can't state it any clearer, okay? You're finding the top point. There's an X and a Y. You are not done with this problem until you have 2 numbers here. So X is the opposite of B divided by 2 times A. At that point, always, it's the vertex. That's the formula for the vertex. You're going to have to get a standard form equation, okay? And then Y, we replace X on calculator. All right, now this is not a gravity problem, though. This is revenue, and the revenue is equal to the money I charge times the number of items I sell. So put each factor in parentheses. Get R out of there because Y should be the variable. Then make 2. Now it's time to put some values and variables in here. Money. What are the money amounts? $70 and $1. Those are like terms, okay? 70 and 50 aren't like terms. 70 and 1 are not like, this 1 right here are not like terms. $70 and $1. They're common units, they're like terms. So we start with 70. That's your one-time price. Don't put a variable. And then we decrease it by $1. So minus 1, but we're decreasing it by $1 repeatedly, remember. So X. Okay? And then what are the other 2 values? 50 skateboards and 1 skateboard. Those are like terms as well. So 50, 1 more means it's plus 1x. Now that's great, but I don't have an A and a B because it's in the wrong form. It's in factored form. So get it out of there. y equals blank x squared, and that's going to be where a is at, plus blank x, that's b, plus blank. Now, I'm a nice guy here, so to avoid a bunch of careless mistakes, I'm going to let you use that Math Papa algebra calculator so you don't have to do the distributive rainbows. You won't have to do the FOIL, okay? And here's the Math Papa. If you had me last year, you know what it is. You go to Google search. I'm looking at baseball scores. So you go Math, M-A-T-H, P-A-P-A, algebra calculator. Comes right up, okay? Come on. All right, there it is. And what you can do is just enter in expressions and they calculate. I'm going to allow this on story problems, nothing else. So what I'm going to do is parentheses and then 7d minus 1x, so minus 1, and you just go to the letter x, close the parentheses. You don't even need to hit times, you just make another parentheses, and then 50 plus 1x. You guys did this last year, okay? It saves time, and it leads to less careless mistakes, okay? If I can find the plus sign. Okay. Plus 1. And don't complain, I'm letting you use this, that's good, okay? You have a better chance of getting the right answer. Okay, there we go. Negative x squared. So it's going to be negative 1. 20 is in front of x, and then 3,500 is there. Okay. All right, so we got a and b. Up here we go. Opposite of b, negative 20. And then 2 times a, it's going to be 2 times negative 1, and that's negative 2. Divide that, it's going to be 10. And then replace x on the calculator with 10. The 10 is a number of price changes that happen. Negative 1, and then 10 to the second, plus 20, and then 10, plus 3,500. Okay, not sure what's going on there. Come on, Herbson. Get your head out of your backside. $3,600. Okay. Okay, so $3,600 is the maximum revenue. Real simple. Finding the top, opposite of B2A. Revenue is money times items. You got to put the monies together. You need to put variables the way they belong. Okay, so that's about all I can do for you right there. And then you can multiply that out, get it out of that form by use with your Math Papa calculator. All right, last problem. And I will be getting some scratch paper out so I'm able to do this the way I want, because there's an A and a B to the problem. Missiles launched into the air with an initial vertical velocity of 800 feet per second from an initial height of 200 feet above the ground. First, we're calculating the max height. So on your scratch paper, same as last problem, but the equation's different because it's not revenue. Opposite of B, divided by 2 times A, and then replace X in equation to find the Y. Talking gravity here, so negative 16x squared needs to make an appearance. And then the feet per second come next, so plus 800x. And it says initial height of 200 feet. And then we equal that to y. Or you can put y equals in front, it don't matter. So we have the ABC right away. We don't have that parentheses crap like on the last problem. So opposite of B, negative 800. 2 times A, negative 16, divided by negative 32. Negative 800 divided by negative 32 is 25. Negative 16 and 25 to the second power plus 825. Remember, 25 is not the answer, okay? That's the number of seconds it took to get to the max height. 10,200, okay? And you will hand in your scratch paper on the test so I can see what you are up to. 10,200 feet. Okay, flip it over. Now it's time for part B. Calculate at what time the missile is going to be 500 feet above the ground. All right, so we're doing something different here. So we're not finding the max, so we better do our analysis using the boxes. So the two units are feet and seconds. And per feet per second. Okay, feet per second's 800. And this is a parabola, so we just need to write the equation. So negative 16x to the second plus the 800x. It's the same as you wrote on the last problem. Plus the initial height of 200. You got to get the feet per second with the x and the initial height as your constant. That means it doesn't have a variable. Okay, it looks to me like the input value is 500 feet. So 500 feet. That equals y. Unfortunately. Much nicer when it equals x, but it doesn't. Negative 16x squared plus 800x plus 200 equals 500. All right, now we got to solve it. What letter do we have? We have x. It's to the second power, so that's going to be two answers. And we have x to the second and x, so we are going to have to do our factoring procedure. Okay? Again, whenever we have x second and x. Now, make sure you have equals 0, and we don't, so we need to subtract that 500 out of there. Okay? So I have negative 16x squared plus 800x. 200 minus 500 is negative 300 equals 0. Okay? And now you can proceed because there's three terms. And there's always three terms on these, but you do need to clear that to 0. GCF and the T-chart. GCF, you do have a negative in front. Do you have X on everything? Nope, not on 300. Okay, and then you punch these three into the GCF calculator. If there's ever a time to use a GCF calculator, that would definitely be it. Okay, and the GCF out of these three is 4, so negative 4 gets factored out, and then divide by negative 4. And we have positive 4x squared now. Negative 200x, so put minus 200x, and then plus 75. And this is where I do my ABC from. Okay, so A times C, 4 times 75. 300, I'm not doing a t-test. I'm going to put fail. I don't do t-chart tests because with numbers in the hundreds, okay? Time to use a quadratic formula. So opposite of B is 200 plus or minus the square root, parentheses to the second, minus 4 goes here. Okay, B is negative 200. Then A is 4. Then C is 75. Okay, and then we have 2 and A. Okay, remember how you do that. You do your ABC from the GCF point. Okay, so we got 200. And 2 times 4 is 8. And for time's sake, I'm going to the calculator to figure out my square root. So second square root, double it. Negative 200 to the second, minus, and then 4. 475. Okay, I got 190. That's close enough to 197. So 200 plus 197 equals, divided by 8, and that's 49.6. So that'll work. good enough answer, 49.6. Then 200 minus 197 divided by 8, 0.38, okay? Oh, they're both positives. Put them both. 49.6 and 0.38. At what time? So that's how many seconds. Reason you have two answers is because it got to 500 feet on the way up, which is that answer, and on the way down, which is that answer.